So the ERA, right? Something I consider to be the main course on my channel, in fact. And if you see my video on the rough development of the story, you know that both seasons made were technically complete remakes. So I've completed both series and made that video. What more is there to go over? Well, I'm sure glad you totally asked, because what I aim to achieve with this video is to try and explain what the hell even happened in the original story by explaining things not in release order, but in chronological order. So strap in, because this one is going to make the nearly incomprehensible comprehensible. The story starts with these two siblings named Xander and Lucy. Xander had the goal of making animatronics, presumably to entertain others. However, people didn't like them because of how creepy their movement and looks were. Despite this, Lucy has supported his endeavors and even made an animatronic for herself called Lullabit so she can have some company. The story then abruptly mentions that Xander's attending his second year at Black Rose High, but still hasn't found a significant other yet. However, he's had his eye on this person named Lisa. Yes, the one from Genshin Impact. May I just say, from this point on, expect there to be characters from multiple franchises, such as Portal, Genshin, FNAF, obviously, as well as many others who appear out of nowhere. The reason why they're even here in the first place is Luce and I thought it'd be a good idea to go and put those various characters into the story because we liked them a lot or thought it'd be funny. Anyways, eventually Xander makes his move on Lisa and confesses his feelings for her, thus resulting them getting into a relationship. After a few years had passed, Xander made the Mega Pizzaplex and had a kid with Lisa they named Klee. Everything seemed to be going well until the establishment had to be shut down because of more than several health code violations and a bunch of issues with the Glamrock animatronics. This led to the place being demolished but was also burnt down by Klee. It's alluded to that she might have found out something that caused her to view Xander as a villain. Whatever this reason was, Lisa had actually left Xander before he made the Pizzaplex because of it. Later on, Klee had somehow accidentally burned down their house, which actually had the animatronic built by Xander within its basement named Pop Rock. Apparently, in this post description, there was something about how Pop Rock was left behind by Xander as the house was burning down. Because of this, he would go at any length to one day get revenge on Xander and kill him. So after the house burned down, Xander finds his childhood home and moves there, then also plans out another Freddy's location. Along the way, Xander would randomly encounter Genshin characters who would end up moving into the house. This would make him his so-called children. Xander never bothered to properly take care of them, however, and instead took the time to work on more animatronics most of the time. He would also have nightmares, which were Danganronpa and Among Us like scenarios for some reason. These were caused by Klee, who I believe was poisoning sandwiches she would make for him to test his mentality. Also, Xander was a confirmed alcoholic at this time. After some time, Xander and some others would go grocery shopping at a 7-Eleven. That was until it got shot up by the Phantom Splinks crew, apparently. Then Klee blew the place up. What the fuck? How the hell did anyone survive? So anyways, Xander wakes up in some sort of facility to witness some of the Genshin characters either unconscious or killed. Then Lucy and Klee show up. It's apparent they were the orchestrators of this whole thing, and while it was never said why the pair teamed up, Xander came up with a little theory. Klee had somehow found out that Xander tried to, get rid of Klee before she was born. This was the reason Lisa had left prior and why Lucy wanted to team up with Klee. Lucy felt bad for her. Then the arc closes off with Klee having the ability to open her mouth and have the void spill out, creating a portal leading to there. Xander tried to escape while he still could, but ended up within it. Alright, so that was a lot to take in. There was a lot of random stuff just seemingly thrown in for the fun of it, and some of the pacing to get to certain points in the story feel kinda messy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my much less than stellar writing of 2021. I'll cut myself some slack though, because this is actually my first time trying to write a story mostly on my own. Oh, also, at some point it was revealed that Lisa had somehow possessed Pop Rock or something. It never comes back up again though. Another thing I should mention is that Pop Rock's design occasionally flip-flops between the toy and classic versions. Anywho, let's move on to the next part of the story. The The story comes back to Xander, who finds himself to be stuck within the void, and sees a tiny guy, more so a snatcher minion from a hat of time, wandering around. He asks where he is, and the minion replies with, "You are in the void, sir." Xander starts to look around and finds Klee in the center, who, if I remember correctly, was being restrained to, I guess, not cause any more chaos. Eventually, after wandering around and interacting with other people trapped in the void, he eventually comes across Lucy, who is being held tightly by the guy who runs the void, called the Contract Man. The Contract Man explained that if he wanted to get out of here, he needed to sign a contract, surprise, surprise. While Xander had the ability to bring one other person with him, he didn't bring anyone for some reason. Afterwards, he was transported back to the house, however felt guilty for leaving Lucy behind when people started to ask what had happened to her. To set things right, Xander finds a way to get back into the void so he can rescue Lucy. I think they might have saved Klee too, but I'm not too sure. Also, the Contract Man ended up living with everyone for a bit, and would only leave if someone did something for him, I think. Eventually he did leave, and everyone else did too. Then the arc just ends? I think the reason why this part was cut is because of a couple things. I had grown tired of role-playing in Gmod and simultaneously writing down these poorly written summaries a bunch of times. I fell behind in writing those said summaries to let the audience, if there even was any, know what was happening in the story. Because by the time I was making this part, I was already developing Era 3, and also things were going on in my personal life at the time that were affecting my motivation to write. Before I move on to what I believe happened in the third era, just want to mention a few things that I couldn't fit into anywhere else. Klee had somehow gained the ability to get in Xander's head and influence him to do stuff, I think. This would explain why it says the Klee conscience in this drawing. Klee, also in a rampage, would obtain the arm of a plush shop chaser, then attach it to herself for some reason. I had also taken screenshots of a comic I wanted to make for Pop Rock, but ended up forgetting about it for years until I was sifting through the files of my old laptop, found the screenshots, then finally put the comic together. I read the comic in this video, which I recommend you check out after this one if you haven't yet. Along the way, throughout Xander and everyone else's adventure, a new foe had surfaced, proving themselves to be a huge problem. Enter Hutao and her crew, consisting of some messed up version of Maui from Moana, who was also a furry, some inside joke character called Johnny, a naked Tom Nook from Animal Crossing who's angry, and we don't talk about that one. Honestly, if I were to give this group an actual name, it'd be the Shitpost Squad, because just look at them. I think Hutao had actually kidnapped several characters who are important to the story, so Xander and the crew went back to the 7-Eleven to formulate a plan so they can stop Hutao. After gearing up for the battle, Xander must have gotten kidnapped himself at some point, thanks to this image of all things. The arc ended with everyone else finding Hutao and her squad on top of the roof at Xander's house. It's also at this point, I should mention something. Xander has had the ability of using a gun that can make portals to the future or past. Basically, he had a time gun. Because he was messing around with these portals so much, whenever something would go wrong or not be in his favor, broken timeline pieces would glue themselves back together to form a character called the Past. For some reason, her personality would be a mixture of Xander and Lucy's, most likely because they are the two main characters that are at the very beginning of all this. Oh, also she had a romantic interest in Xander for one reason or another. Regardless, he eventually found a new person to have as his partner. That was another Genshin Impact character called a Ganyu, and would take another shot at making a Freddy's location, featuring the classic animatronics, a Broken Town Fredbear, and the original versions of Jalapeno Bear and Bunny, as well as Michael Afton working as the guard there. While everything seemed all well and good, y'all should know the formula by now the moment I say those words. Yes, another bad thing had happened. This time though, some weird broken down copy of Pop Rock broke in and destroyed everything, stealing Fredbear and kidnapping certain people in the process. Now, details about what exactly happened next are a bit wishy-washy to me, but from what little I can remember, Lucy, Vlogtrap, and for some reason Klee were some of the people kidnapped and subjected to being tortured in human-sized hamster balls, and Vlogtrap was tortured in something called a, best I don't say that one. Listen, I'm not sure I entirely knew just what I was doing back then. I think I was struggling with the ways to make Hutao be bad and chose to take a weird route in order to achieve that, I guess. I obviously feel ashamed that I even thought doing this in the story. Regardless, everyone must have won because he doesn't appear after this point, point ever again. Also, may I just mention, Hutao had taken over a Walmart of all things at some point to make into her lair? Another thing that was done at some point was Hutao had sent Xander and everyone else to the freaking Deltarune map and met Noelle, like what? Anyways, they would then get teleported one by one to Freddy's horror attraction for some reason. I don't know, man, it was just something that happened. Oh, another thing that happened was Xander, as well as the others, were exploring an abandoned Freddy's location, then suddenly got ambushed by a Uga Chaka baby army led by Hutao. This is where the phrase, "get off me you fat orphan," came from. Moving on, we can finally proceed to the near finale of this poorly written story. So without any further ado, let's finish this. So at some point after Hutao's Reign of Terror, Pop-Rock had grown irritated at dealing with everything. So what did he do in response? Make a team consisting of Chuck, a corrupted animatronic Lucy I created, 2 Genshin characters, and the past. They together ambushed Xander and a few others, killing some random version of Freddy, as well Annie, who was another one of Xander's animatronics. I'm unsure what would have happened after, but following this, Xander would go insane to then somehow end up in a Springlock Pop-Rock suit. While he's not too significant, I remember this version of Xander would try to lie, saying he was an unknown copy of Pop-Rock that just happened to come alive now for no apparent reason. Later on, Xander would for some reason decide to go full terrorist mode and set 7 damn countries on fire. Like, what the hell? Xander would later randomly show up again as his monster form to cause more chaos. This time killing Pop-Rock, who went back to his classic suit, to later on become more powerful and transform into a nightmare version. This transformation never happened, by the way. After that, I believe Xander must have been defeated or something, because he would later find his corpse, take Pop-Rock's dead body to fuse together and become this abomination. What Xander would then proceed to do after is stalk every relevant character in being a creepy thing crawling around at their new house, which they had moved in so they could start a new life. Xander would also eventually end up killing Klee. Then, I believe in order to get away, Lucy had retreated to some safe place dimension and hid out there in the meantime, along with everyone else. It was then Xander had devised a grand plan to end everything. Xander had found himself in the lowest of all possible lows. Feeling distraught and poisoned with insanity, he decided to try and destroy everything, including the broken timelines he created. However, Xander's father, called Uberto, who's never been relevant until now, I guess, somehow caught wind of this plan and did some type of research to explain that in order to do this, they needed versions of himself and Klee from those aforementioned broken timelines. Now, while he could have just done that and ended everything, Xander had decided to complicate things. He wanted to gather everyone up and burn them all in an unknown Freddy's location called Red Bear's Family Pizza Palace. The story then tried to give an explanation as to why things ended so abruptly to anyone following the series. If you didn't know, I had posted Era 1, made a teaser for Era 3, then decided to post the unfinished version of Era 2's story, then seemingly abandoned everything for a while. So, how does this try to explain what has happened in the time between? Apparently, the reason why Era 2 ended so abruptly is because Uberto was messing with his powers and accidentally destroyed that timeline or something. So to fix this, Xander created yet another timeline. This time, I'm not funny. It became infected with all the bad elements of what happened from Era 1 and 2, which resulted in these events I've been talking about. The story then out of the blue states that Ganyu wasn't real. She never was. Like, what was I on and can I have it back? Please! Apparently, Xander then begged for her to come back, but she never did. Then it comes to Lucy and explains that she's still in the safe place. However, got covered in void goop after having been through something called the manipulated void? Might explain this image, I guess. Anyways, Xander is now luring all the characters to Red Bears. However, needs help retrieving everyone from the safe place. So he has the past team up with him and then open up a portal to there. Once the portal is ready, Xander hops in as this gigantic burnt version of Pop-Rock and manages to transfer everyone to Red Bears. For a bit, all everyone did was for some reason just hang around. However, the corrupted animatronic Chuck returns to get freaky, we'll say. Chuck manages to corner some of the characters in the kitchen. However, a shadow body animatronic and Klee blow up Chuck, who turns into an old man after getting blown up by one of Klee's bombs. Okay, moving on. Everything was supposed to end in the location getting set ablaze and everyone dying. But for some reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to use the ending from Hutao's story arc. That's strange, but whatever. I like to to end this video by talking about why the story is the way it is. I believe what had happened was throughout making this thing, so many random and small events had occurred that I wanted to fit it all into what I thought of the time to be a cohesive narrative. Another issue was I tried to give random things an explanation I thought of on a whim and didn't look it over to make sure everything made sense. In fact, that was another issue with the story. I had, again, very little experience writing a story mostly on my own. Not to mention that I would roleplay in Gmod, then go to the Google document and hastily write things down, then back to Gmod, then back to the document, over and over again. I remember this one time, once me or Luce were done in Gmod, I would try to remember everything that had happened and write things down. Mind you, these roleplays would go on for a long time. I think at least an hour to 40 or so minutes, so I wouldn't even remember all the details sufficiently. But regardless, despite all of its flaws, the original version I had, I still love it. I have fun looking back at what I've made and seeing how far I've come with it, as well as how much better I've gone at making narratives for people to enjoy. It's also a bit nostalgic looking back at all the Gmod maps used and old drawings I may have made at the time. With all that said, I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye for now.